this evening is Dr. Cassie Barlow. She is the president of Strategic Ohio Council for Higher Education. She was the 88th Air Base Wing Commander. She commanded one of the large wings in the Air Force with more than 5,000 military, civilian, and contractor employees. She retired from active duty in 2014 after completing 13 assignments. So Cassie, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And it's wonderful to see you all this evening. I so look forward to this evening every month. And I'll tell you, a month hasn't gone by where I haven't learned something new about my faith, and something new about what we all share in our lives. So it is fabulous to be here with you all this evening. And we're going to talk a lot about hope this evening. And I immediately went to the Bible. So we're going to talk a lot about some stories of hope in the Bible. And then we're also going to talk about some stories of hope in our lives as well. I have never been so aware of hope in my life until I read this little book, Holy Moments. And hope that you all have had a chance. It's a small book, as you can see. It doesn't take a long time to read it. And I'm on my third time through the book right now, and I tell you, I pick up something new every single time I read this book. And related to our message for tonight and what we're going to talk about, hope. Matthew Kelly, who is the author of this book, has another book that relates to the topic for this evening. And the book is called The World is Messy. It's a perfect fit for this evening. And it's actually a perfect fit, unfortunately, for our world right now. And if anything needs prayers, it's our world. There's just a lot of unrest right now. And, the really cool thing that I've discovered through reading this book is that all of us sitting around this table this evening have power. All of us have power to contribute to fixing the messiness of this world. And never before have I realized that exact power that we have. So I want to talk a little bit about that. And I really want to start with a story. And if you want to open up your Bible and read along, you certainly can. It's Mark 5, verses 21 to 43. And I think this story is very illustrative of hope and our power to make change in our world, either directly or indirectly. And we'll get a little bit more into that as I go.
That was Mark 5.
Mark 5, verses 21 to 43.
Thank you.
So I'm going to start, and I have done some research on this. So there's some theologian wisdom in here. I wish I could say it's mine. It's not. But I'll be pointing out some key points of this gospel. So Mark 5, 21 to 43. When Jesus had crossed again by boat to the other side, many people gathered to him, and he was beside the sea. One of the rulers of the synagogue, named Jairus, saw Jesus and came and fell at his feet and earnestly asked him, "My little daughter is lying at the point of death. I ask you, come and lay your hands on her so that she may be healed and she will live." So Jesus went with him, and many people followed him and pressed in on him. And a certain woman had a hemorrhage for 12 years and had suffered much under many physicians. She had spent all that she had and was not better, but rather grew worse. When she heard of Jesus, she came into the crowd behind him and touched his garment. For she said, "If I may touch his garments, I shall be healed." And immediately her hemorrhage dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the affliction. At once, Jesus knew within himself that power had gone out of him. He turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my garments?" And his disciples said to him, "You see the crowd pressing around you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see her and who had done it. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the entire truth. He said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction." While he was still speaking, some came from the house of the synagogue ruler and said, "Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?" As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said to the ruler of the synagogue, "Do not be afraid, only believe." He let no one follow him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. He came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and saw the tumult and those who wept and wailed loudly. When he came in, he said to them, "Why make this uproar and weep? The girl is not dead, but sleeping."
I'm going to leave in 15 minutes.
Okay. They laughed at him in ridicule. But when he had put them all out, he took the father and the mother of the girl and those who were with him and entered where the girl was lying. He took the girl by the hand and said to her, "Talitha cumi," which means, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." Immediately the girl arose and walked, for she was 12 years of age. And they were greatly astonished. He strictly ordered them to let no one know of it and directed them to give her something to eat. So folks, there's something direct and uncomplicated about this gospel. And at the same time, there's a lot of literary sophistication in this as well. It's kind of a narrative, sandwiching is what it's called, and meaning that he begins a story, Mark begins a story, then he interrupts it to insert a second story, and then he finishes the first story. And it's a really clever way of writing for many different reasons. But I really think what Mark is doing is he wants us to read these two stories together. So he's connecting these two stories for us. And I want to talk about that a little bit. So first we have the story of the daughter of Jairus, right? And Jairus is a synagogue official who wasn't a huge fan of Jesus, right? But he comes to Jesus and he says, "My daughter is dying. Please come." So Jesus sets out, and while he's setting out, now Mark puts the second story in, the story of the hemorrhaging woman who reaches out and finds healing in him. And then that story ends, and we go back to the original story. So we see how Jesus raises the daughter of Jairus from the dead. And let's start with the story in the middle. But keeping in mind that these two stories are related and they're sparking off of each other. So he's on his way, right, to see Jairus's daughter. And you know that everybody is excited. He's got crowds around him because they've heard about this guy, Jesus, and they know that he's been performing miracles, right? So they're really interested. And he's going to help out this girl. So the crowd is excited, they're around him. And when we hear of this woman who, mind you, has been sick for 12 years, remember that number, 12 years. That's a long time, and a long time to hemorrhage. And we don't know anything else about her disease, and it really doesn't matter. But here's what does matter. When we talk about a hemorrhage in the Jewish culture of this time, and we could read the book of Leviticus to get more details, but if you had a flow of blood, that meant you were unclean during those times. We all know this. Secondly, anything you touched or you sat upon was unclean. And any person that you came in contact with would also be unclean. So can you see how incredibly desperate this woman was? Can everybody see that? I mean, this woman was extremely desperate. 12 years she had been physically suffering. So it must have been something pretty serious, right? But in a way, that's the least of her concerns, right? Because could you imagine the psychological suffering and of being ostracized and of being just this dangerous figure, right? She can't even touch anybody. And if she reaches out, you get out of the way, right? So can you imagine living your life that way of not being able to touch anyone and be around anyone? So it must have been just psychological torture for her, because that meant that she was religiously unclean as well. I mean, she couldn't even go to the temple. So you can't join the synagogue, you can't worship, right? And you're now religiously in a really awful position. So at every level of this poor woman's life, she is suffering. And so she hears about Jesus, the healer, and she is desperate. So she knows she can't talk to him, because if she talks to him, then she makes him unclean. And he'll know, of course, that she's a problem and that she can't go up to him, right? But she's thinking, maybe as he walks by, I can reach out and not even touch the main part of his clothing, right? She just touches the tassel of his clothing. That's it. And that's what she does. Summoning, and we have to see this in her, everybody, that she is incredibly courageous in doing this. She reached out, and she had to be incredibly courageous to reach out to do that. And I've also really been intrigued by this line where it says that Jesus felt the power go out from him. Could you imagine? I can't even imagine. I don't know what that's like. But the point is that he's a source of power. He's a source of healing power, right? So just the slightest touch of his tassel brings that healing power into this woman's life at every level that we just talked about, because healing of her discharge is healing of her social ostracization, healing of her religious alienation. It's healing her at every single level. And what did Jesus say to her? Daughter, your faith has saved you. Now, that word faith can be used in a lot of different ways, right? And I think here, the way that we should take it is really in the most fundamental way, meaning trust, meaning hope. Your trust in me has allowed power to come forth for me to save you. And we can see, obviously, ladies, that this is a symbol for us right now, right now in our world. This is a symbol for us. And can you also see other people in our world that are in the same situation as this woman, the exact same situation, who feel exactly the same way she does, ostracized in many different ways, physically, religiously, psychologically? She feels like an alien, and there are people in our world today who feel like aliens, as they feel like outsiders for whatever reason that is, that they have some humiliation in their lives. And maybe they've lost their sense of faith. Maybe they have lost their sense of hope in their lives. Maybe they used to go to church, but maybe they don't now for some reason. Maybe they used to know how to pray and they don't now for some reason. And they find themselves like this woman for 12 years. And maybe for some people it's longer, but for this woman, it was 12 years. And all that Jesus was asking was for them to summon the courage to touch the tassel. That's it. Just touch the tassel. So I want you to think about who are those people in our lives? And we're going to talk about this when we're done. So who are those people in our lives? And how can we help them find the tassel? How do we help them? How do we help them reach out? Maybe there's something that you can do that functions as the tassel on Jesus's cloak to help bring healing to whomever we're thinking about right now. Okay, so we're going to come back to that, as I mentioned. So think about who those people are. So let's leave. We're in the middle of the story. Let's go back to the other part of the story where we're talking about Jairus, right? So Jairus is getting down on his knees. It's a beautiful image. We do this, many of us do this every day, right? Maybe multiple times a day. And he's a synagogue official. As I mentioned, he wasn't a huge fan of Jesus. He just wasn't. He's kind of a high official sort of guy. And so imagine a father who knows that his daughter's dying, and he's desperate. He will do anything to help his daughter. He's not going to worry about being religiously proper, and going to Jesus for him is not religiously proper, right? It's not religiously proper at all. So he gets down on his knees and he begs. He has faith. He has hope. And they get to the house and there is heartbreaking news. Can you just picture the scene in front of you? Picture the scene of walking into the room and the wailing has already started. The wailers have started. And he's begged the Lord to come with him. He arrives, the mourners are there. And back in this day, this was a typical practice, right? In ancient times. The mourners would come and they would help the family with their grief. They would wail and they would help the family mourn. So there they are. And the word comes to Jairus and he says, don't bother, Master. She's dead. She has died. So imagine how he must have felt. Imagine that, of course, his heart is broken right now. And what does Jesus say? Jesus says the child's not dead. The child's asleep. And of course, this detail is just so perfectly reasonable, right? So they ridicule him and they're saying, come on. I mean, we know what a dead person looks like. This is not, she's not asleep. She's dead. So I bet they were really angry, right, with him. They felt probably like he was mocking them. She's dead. She's clearly dead. They know when someone's dead. They're in the business of mourning and of wailing. So he puts them all out of the room. He makes them leave. And he brings in just the father and the mother. They enter the room. And then there's this beautiful touch. It's the touch again, right, of Jesus. And this is a sign, everybody. This is a sign that the story they remember, and this story was remembered very vividly, obviously, and written very vividly, because it's one of 3 times in the entire Bible, 3 times when the original Aramaic of Jesus is remembered. One of 3 times. So the gospel is written in Greek, right? But here he bends down and he takes the girl's hand and he says in his original Aramaic, Talita cum, which is Jesus's native language, which means little girl, get up. And then, 2,000 years later, here we are astounded by the words in this story. And the girl, a child of 12, remember I said that before? How long had the woman hemorrhaged? 12 years, right? This little girl's 12 years old. So he's tying the 2 stories together. A child of 12 rose and immediately walked around. And then the understatement of the century, probably multiple centuries, and they were utterly astounded by this, right? Well, this tells me that they remembered these little details and they wrote them down. And he says, don't tell anybody about this. And we all know what happened, right? Of course everybody told, but give her something to eat. So bring everything back to just everyday life. Give her something to eat, right? So let's dive into that story a little bit. The hemorrhaging woman represents someone who clearly is at her wit's end. She's suffered enormously. She's alienated, but she's got at least her faith, right? And she's got hope. And with that trust, she reaches out and touches the tassel. But the little girl who's already dead, whom does she represent? She represents people who are dead spiritually.
Mm.
They are so alienated from God that they've lost even their faith and their trust and all of their hope. It's gone. There are certain things at life that lead people down this path towards spiritual death. We've all seen it. We've all seen it. Maybe some of us have witnessed it, and some of us have been through that. There are many who have walked down this path. So the girl who has died seems to me too that she represents some kind of spiritual death. So do we give up? Do we give up with spiritual death? No, we don't. And it was the faith of Jairus. This is the important part. It was the faith of Jairus that brought Jesus to her.
Mm.
In the first case, it's the woman, it's her faith, her trust. Her trust saved her. Well, the little girl who's spiritually dead, she can't muster that. She can't do that. But her father could. Her father had the faith. Her father had the trust. He had the hope, and he brought Jesus to here. So here's the lesson for all of us. And I mean, I think this story is just beautiful. We all know those people around us. We all know them who are spiritually dead. Or maybe they've walked away. Maybe they need our help touching that tassel. That they won't summon, because if they are spiritually dead, they can't summon that. But they need you, and they need your faith, and they need your hope. So they need you in their lives. So who is that somebody? Who is that somebody in your life? And we don't have to use names. Who is that someone in your life who's really walked down this path? And that they can't summon their faith, but maybe you can. Maybe you can help bring Jesus to them. I think everybody in this room with us this evening has that power, has that marvelous power, that hope and that faith to bring healing and to help bring healing to someone. But it takes noticing, it takes having hope, and it takes having faith. So I'm going to stop there because I've already talked a lot. I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to see if this has sparked anything. Has this story sparked anything? Was there something in there that kind of stood out to you? And was there someone that it brought to mind for you, that through your faith and through your trust and through your hope, that you can help them find the path to Jesus? What do you guys think?
Cassie, I loved the way when we look at these stories side by side, that whether you're the woman going to Jesus or we're the child where he comes to us, that he can be found. That struck me because, you know, there's times where I've been laid out on the floor, one breath at a time, and all I could say was his name in prayer. I had no words otherwise, you know, and he came to me at that point. You know, I didn't even have the energy the woman had to crawl towards him to reach for his garment. And so that just struck me looking at both of those stories. And then as you were talking about, you know, the woman being ostracized, even imagining at that moment, she's in a crowd. And I'm certain there's people in that crowd who knew of her affliction and were either running away from her or thinking, how dare she think she could reach out to Jesus? And Jesus knew she was there. You know, even though he said, you know, who touched my garment, he knew she was there. And it just a whole lot of things, but I loved that comparison of both of the young woman, the child, and the older woman being able to have Jesus.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing the power of your faith, because that's what it takes, to be able to reach out and ask him to come to us. And it sounds like that was something that was really a powerful moment for you, powerful time. What do you think? Anybody else? Any thoughts on the story? And did it spark any ideas? Any thoughts in your mind about maybe people in your lives who could use us reaching out, and even if that reach out is prayer and praying for them.
Cassie, one of the things that hit me was the 12 years, the woman bled for as long as that child had lived. And I don't know, that just, I'm not answering your question, but
Oh.
I just found that interesting, because sometimes that thing that keeps us from the Lord is a whole lifetime. And
Mhm.
sometimes it's a large piece of time in our lifetime. And I was just thinking about how when we're bringing people to the Lord, that some people have never their whole life known him. And some have gone years of either walking away from him or feeling betrayed by him, or recently I've heard several people say that my prayers just don't seem to be heard. And that's a lonely place to be. Whether,
Mhm.
whether it's a little girl that has her whole life, right? Or the woman who had had those same 12 years in this abandonment position. 12 years is a long time. I mean, it's almost a generation, right?
Right.
It's almost that next generation. And I just think you started out with hope, and I thought, sometimes we think of people who have never walked with the Lord, like I can't get them to him.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because they have all this built up over the years.
Yeah.
And then for the person who has felt betrayed or abandoned, that's hard. So we get discouraged. I guess that's where I'm going, is we get
Mhm.
discouraged in bringing them to the Lord, because maybe they won't come.
Right.
How can you bring somebody back from the dead? How can you heal somebody who's been sick for so long? And yet, I think that's where the hope is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That time is nothing for him.
Right.
We in my Bible study, we just did a study in First Chronicles 21, where David goes out to number his
Mm.
army.
Mhm.
And the thing is, numbers mean nothing to the Lord. They never do. He had Gideon, who had this army that was too small to fight, and the Lord shaved it down to just 300. Numbers don't mean anything. So time is a number that means nothing to the Lord. And so for me, that was the hope. That was the encouragement for me, was that it does not matter how long someone has either been away from the Lord or never been there,
Mhm.
that he is always accessible.
He just wants us back.
Yeah.
Mhm. It is not lost on me this evening that I'm at my sister's house in Virginia, and I ended up sitting in front of a liquid embroidery picture. I'm going to show it to you guys really quick. That my brother and sister and I made when we were, don't know if you guys can see this.
My gosh.
Oh, wow, that's
Um,
beautiful.
So-
That's beautiful.
Beautiful.
So we made this, I want to say it was probably in the 1970s at some point. And I cannot believe actually that my sister still has it and that it's sitting on this little desk that I'm sitting at this evening. But the reason why this is important is you can see us, we signed our names on here in the very poor writing of little kids at the time. And we all grew up in the same house with the same parents and with the same faith, all of us. And my brother has fallen away from the faith, and I personally, especially after my mother's death, am trying desperately to get him back. Desperately.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, family members are probably the hardest ones, right?
Yep.
It's probably easier with
Mhm.
just with a friend, right? So I'm doing everything I can to, so when I go visit him, I'm like, hey, why don't you come to church with us? And looking for books because he's a huge science fanatic. And so he thinks everything is explained by science, and we all of us around the table know better. And there's some things that science can't explain. So anyway, it's just not lost on me this evening that I'm sitting in front of this embroidery with my brother's name right there. And so anyway, I'm going to continue to try to get him to the tassel, so to say, because I think it's still in there. Any other thoughts from anybody before we move on to the Beth? Do you mind? Go ahead, Mary. Do you have something?
Yeah, I have a young lady that I talked with today, and originally I tried to have lunch with her. She's a believer, and she canceled. And when I talked to her today, she doesn't want anyone to know her story, and she doesn't want to be close to anyone. And so I see her like the young lady that died, but she doesn't realize she's dead. So I was pretty frustrated. I shared it with my husband. That I told her I don't want to know her story. I have to work with her, and so we have to come together as a team and as believers and work together. But originally, I did want to know her story. So my question is, how do you talk to someone that you already have discerned that there's some hurt? She doesn't want to share her story. She wants to just be closed and have no connection with anyone.
Yeah.
Because I was ready to just, okay, I don't need to know your story, but we need to work together. But now, after hearing what you shared, I need to hear her story or continue to love on her. But how do you penetrate a person like that is young?
Yeah. And Mary, first of all, thank you for sharing. And I don't have all of the answers, and I'd love it if some of the other ladies can jump in who maybe have had a similar situation. But I think you hit the nail on the head by saying you just continue to love on her. She clearly, it sounds like, maybe hasn't had enough love in her life and has a lot of hurt. And she just needs you to be a safe person for her. And by showing your love little by little, maybe someday she will tell you her story, but she doesn't need to earn your love, right? She's going to get your love regardless. And that's what she needs to know is that you're there for her, and that you will help to to bring her through whatever it is she's going through, because
Yeah.
it sounds like she really needs you. But that it's also typical when you're in a situation like that to push back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I share with her, I said, I have seen your face every night when I go to bed, and I don't want to see your face again. I said, something is going on. You don't have to tell me what's going on, but apparently the Holy Spirit is prompting me to pray for you and to not take it personal that you're kind of that you've turned cold when you were such a happy person when you came to be employed there. So yeah, I'm just you know how you're tired of
Mhm.
trying to break a shell, but the Lord won't release you from that person. So it's not like he's gonna stop putting her in my
No.
face now that I talk to her.
Yeah, she's probably going to be in your face even more now, but
Right.
she needs you, and that's why the Lord
Yeah.
is putting her in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And what a blessing for you. I mean, he's got some serious trust in you to be bringing this young lady to you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Wow.
So keep loving, keep loving.
Okay.
Is
Thank
it,
you. That was really good. I can't stay the whole time
no,
because I
that's
have an
okay.
8 o'clock, but that was good advice. Thank you.
Great. No, I appreciate it, and great to see you here this evening, Mary.
Thank you.
Beth, would you mind putting the slides up?
Yes. I mean, no, I wouldn't mind. Share screen. All right.
Just have a few slides to go through. Go ahead and go to the next one if you could. There we go. So I mentioned that the first thing I did was I went to the Bible to look to see where are there some specific, and there were a lot more than this, a lot more areas than this, but there were so many comments about hope throughout the Bible, which I think is a strong message for us as we work through this Holy Moments book, because that's what Holy Moments are all about. They're all about hope.
Yeah.
Go ahead and go to the next slide, please, Beth. So the book talked about Les Mis, and I'm going to make the assumption that you all are very familiar with Jean Valjean, who definitely relied on the faith and the hope of another after stealing something from him. And it's just an amazing story how the man forgave him and offered him hope for his future. I mean, Jean Valjean basically was coming out of prison and literally had no hope at all. Didn't trust anybody, and ended up meeting this man that gave him a lot of hope. You all, of course, are very, very familiar with the prodigal son story. And this is an incredible example, I think, of faith. And once again, I mean, the son who came back was someone who was dead to the world, right? And his father welcomed him back, just like Jesus does. Like Jesus welcomes back those who maybe have been spiritually dead. And the timing, as Deborah mentioned, doesn't matter, because God doesn't care about timing. And then the same on the Good Samaritan story, in terms of just a fantastic example of holy moments. And you all know just as well as I do how many stories, how many holy moments are interspersed throughout the Bible and are there as examples for us. Next slide, please, Beth. I want to talk a little bit on this slide. Some of these people may look familiar to you, and one of them is here with us this evening. As a matter of fact, I'm going to start with her. Marion, I'm going to talk a little bit about you. So when I thought about hope and when I was reading our book for this evening, so many people just flashed in front of my my eyes on people that are just surrounding me and in my life every day, who offer hope, give hope to those around them for many different reasons. So, and Marion is one of those for me, who in her father's memory has set up a wonderful, wonderful nonprofit called Invite-A-Vet. And she has a huge, huge event every year that is free for veterans. And they come and they enjoy a guest speaker and they enjoy an amazing meal, all because of what Marion has done throughout the year to raise money for this event. And this year it's going to be at the National Museum of the United States Air Force. And you know, when Marion first talked to me about this event, she said she was hoping maybe, you know, there'd be about 20 or 30 people that showed up. And as you all know where I'm going with this story, it was way more than that. So leading to the event being at the National Museum this year, because I know that there will be hundreds of people there. So Marion gives me hope. Marion is a sign of hope in my life. And next I want to talk about, you're welcome. You're welcome. Next, I want to talk about the woman that's in the middle of the screen. Her name is Phil Mary, and she's from Nigeria. And I met her last year, actually, at my church. And she's just an amazing person. She's a military spouse, and she has followed her husband around for close to 30 years around the world, because their last assignment was actually in Dayton, Ohio, and that's where I met her. And she jumped in to our community, our church community, and immediately started volunteering in ways that, you guys, I haven't seen in people who have been part of our church community for years. So she just jumped right into the middle of everything. And it was just such a, and I say was because they have moved back to their home country. She was just such a beautiful soul in our community, and gave all of us hope every single day for how we could contribute to our community. Right next to her on the left, there's actually a theme in here that I didn't really recognize until this evening, but it just tells you who's in my life every day. So the woman to her left that has the headband, or the head the hat on, is Tui Phelps. And if you can offer up a prayer for her this evening, I would very much appreciate that. She's another amazing soul who has followed her husband around for, once again, close to 30 years around the Army, and she has brain cancer right now, and is in her last few days. But she has been a loving mother and a loving grandmother and a loving wife, and it was such a powerful example of just a really strong military spouse in my life, and just have an incredible amount of respect for her. And you know, she is she's not able to talk or to read anymore because of the brain cancer, but her family is supporting her, and she's able to continue to show her love for her family through her smiles and through just spending time with them. So the lady above her with the little horse in front of her, I want to talk about her a little bit, and then I want to hear from you guys. So that her name is Jana, and Jana is a Navajo Native American. Grew up on the reservation in New Mexico, and she came into my life through the military. I worked with her for several years. Actually, we were stationed twice together, which is really unusual. And I ended up being godmother for two of her three children, who she brought to the faith because she was brought up Navajo, and they typically Navajo, they have their own faith community, but she thought that having her children become Christian was really important. So, and she now is at a point in her life where she travels around the country to different reservations and talks about her career in the military, and talks about what she was able to do. She's still in the Air Force, and I tell you, she has been through a lot of struggles in her life, and still that smile on her face is there every single day, and she is just doing a fantastic job raising her three children. So, and there's many others on this slide that give me hope every single day in the world around us. And I wonder if there's somebody that you all would like to share with us this evening, somebody in your life that gives you hope every day. Any ideas?
This is Daria.
Hi, Daria.
Hi, Cassie. I have two sisters, Yolanda and Tanya, and I'm their big sister, but a lot of times they're my big sisters because through the years, we're all Christian. We know we've fallen short, but through the years, when I wanted to give up, when I thought, especially after my husband died 16 years ago, I was a basket case, and I didn't know how to get back on track. My sister, one lives in Chicago. She would come down, surprise me on the weekend, stay with me, make me go out, take me to concerts. I wasn't even into, but she help make me live again. And then every day or every other day, they're sending me something to make me feel encouraged. And then I have people even on this call that since I've met them, most of them I met through WIBN in 2011. I see Karen. I don't know if I see Melissa in your slide, but these women, I mean, it's like when I wanted to give up, I didn't have to tell them my story. Daria, what's wrong? I can tell by your voice. And I'm like, okay, but I don't want to talk about it. Sometimes people have to make you talk about it. They love you so much, they don't leave you alone. And they risk the friendship. I risk my friendship to make sure you get together. I will risk that to tell you the truth. You're not together. And God did not bring you this far to leave you. Now, and it's like a vitamin. Okay, I start shaking it off. Karen Jackson is another one. Cindy, Jeannie. I mean, I've cried. I mean, the ugly cry, not the pretty cry where you, no. And it's a beautiful thing because sometimes I believe as Christians, we're led to believe that we need to stay within our own tribe.
Mhm.
We need to stay with who we grew up with, or that's not how God works.
Mhm.
We will know each other by our kindred spirit.
Mhm.
I might not know your name, but I can tell when I meet another Christian sister, brother too. So my sister, Karen, Cindy, Jeannie, Melissa, Deborah, Marsha Bonhart. I mean, these are women that have seen me at my worst and kept encouraging me to continue to be my best. And we need each other. I heard Mary talking about this woman that she can't forget. The Lord, you on assignment. The Lord ain't gonna let you forget. I've been there. I was listening to her. I said, "Oh no, you gonna have to wrestle like Jacob did when I'm not gonna let you go, Lord, until you bless me. Don't let it go, Mary, until the Lord blesses you. You'll know what to do." But
Mhm.
this woman stays on your heart for a reason. And you're not comfortable letting it go because you know the Lord is giving you that nudge. Don't do that. I want to use you to help her. So many times we think that things can happen overnight. I heard you talking about your brother Cassie, who had I mean, we fall down.
Mhm.
But guess what? We get up.
Mhm.
And the Lord knows when he's going to get up, but you still have to keep giving that love, that nudge, that push. You don't give up, but there's hope. We don't ever give up on people because God don't never give up on us. So that's my little 2 cents, my little Easter speech.
I love it, Daria. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, Cassie, I am so surrounded with so many women every single day. I am so blessed. I can't even imagine what it would be like in any other kind of life. I just when I hear people talk about how the stories about how unbecoming people are to other people, it's just hard for me to understand because I am not in that environment, and God has blessed me with that. But there's one woman that comes to my mind that it brings me hope, and it's someone that I have met in the last couple of years, and I met her at our Friday morning I'm sorry, Tuesday morning breakfast gathering. And she was part of the wait staff at the Marriott UD. And but when I was searching for a place to hold that breakfast gathering, I wasn't really sure where to do it, where it would be a neutral place for us to meet in Dayton. And I drove by this restaurant at the Marriott UD. I mean, I passed the Marriott UD several times, and something kept drawing me there, kept drawing me there, kept drawing me. And I thought, what? I wonder if they have a restaurant in there. And so I went in, and they just renovated the restaurant area. It was just beautiful. And it had a little area in the back where there's a wall that kind of separated it from the rest of the restaurant. And so I talked to the manager and asked her if she would be willing to let us meet there each week. And we came to some agreement. And that her name is, and we took her in as part of her. I mean, she would stand at our table and pray with us. We would pray with her about situations that she was in. She ended up coming down with a brain tumor, and God just blessed her, and they found a treatment that healed that. But she really, and so she kept, God just laid her on my heart. And so she's the one has given me hope in this last 2 years that God is going to continue to bring us women that are hurting and need love, and that sisterhood that we hopefully are offering to each and every woman that we come in contact with. And today she was so weary of working in the restaurant business, and there was not a lot of help there, and I could see it on her face every week. And so one day I just asked her, what is it that you would want to do if it wasn't this? What would you want to do? And she said, I've always thought about being a flight attendant. And I said, well, what's stopping you from being a flight attendant? What do you think about that? And she said, I don't know. I've never really pursued it. And I said, well, pray about it and ask God to show you if that's where he wants you. And today she is working as a flight attendant with Wisconsin Airlines. And so it's just, God has just blessed her life and blessed me through her, because the fact that that's exactly what I want us to be, is to reaching out to women. That's what God wants us to be, to support and love and care about each of us, each other.
Amen. Amen. Beth, what timer do you want me to hand it back over to
Yeah.
you? Because I want to make sure I don't use up too much
Yeah,
time.
I'd say about 8:15.
Okay. Okay. Jeannie, that is absolutely it. That what you just mentioned, and that is, you know, how can we, through our sisterhood, share the hope that we have, and share holy moments as well. And if you could go to the next slide, Beth. So we have a lot of present day holy moments in our lives, and I think Jeannie just shared one with you, right? But we have organizations in our community, and St. Mary's is another one of them. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But you know, we have many organizations that serve. This is just a few that I thought of as I was, you know, it's one thing to look at the Bible and see all of the holy moments, but it's another thing to just look around our lives and see them every single day. They happen around us every day. And it's up to us to notice them and call them out and thank people. And you know, I think I mentioned to Jeannie and Deborah the other day, I said, I've never seen so many holy moments in my life as I am now. And it's so uplifting. And it's a result of this study that we've been doing throughout the year. So go ahead and go to the next slide if you could, Beth. So, you know, this is directly from the book. You know, what is hope? And it's the belief that there's good things that are coming, and it's the confidence that there's something wonderful that is possible in the future. And you know, Jeannie, that story that you just told is a perfect example of that showing this young lady that there is hope, and that wonderful things are possible, and good things lie ahead. Can you go to the next slide, Beth? And, you know, I think it's really interesting, you know, we don't need studies to say this, because we all have this in our lives every single day. I believe that hope in our lives is a predictor of well-being. And I think we all have specific examples of this. And it improves our physical health, it improves our psychological well-being, and then also our social well-being as well. So important in our lives. Next slide, please. And you all know me well enough to know that you're not going to leave here without another book to read. So here's the book. And there's several people on the screen that know of this book. It is just a fabulous, Renee, do you have one next to you? You probably do. It's a fabulous book. It's written by some locals, and it is the story of residents at St. Mary's Development Apartments for older people. And there are just so many incredible stories in here, you guys. Once again, a very quick read. It's a thin book, see? It's a very quick read, and it is just so inspiring how these people have touched others' lives.
Cassie, this is Renee. Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
That book, was it written by chance by Carol Miller's daughter?
So that's a good question. I'm not sure who Anna Lupke is.
She was a student at UD.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Yeah, she's
So the question is she, so she was an intern, right, Karen? Thank you for reminding me of that. So she
Yes,
was
she
an
was.
intern who came to assist at St. Mary's, and she ended up writing this book. But I don't
That is
know,
correct.
is she Carol Miller's daughter? Does anybody know?
That I don't know, but I can find out.
I asked because I was at a gathering maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and Carol was talking about her daughter having written a book. So are these people that have reached out like in their final days and shared their
No,
moments?
they are people who lived at in St. Mary's,
And they
and
actually still live there.
mhm.
Okay, okay, that might be a different book. I wrote it down. I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. The forward is by Tim Beat, who, of course, he used to be the CEO, right?
He
Of
still is until the end of the year.
okay, okay. Thanks, Karen. But this, I mean, I tell you what, you guys, if you are looking for inspiration, this book is
Yes.
definitely it. It's amazing. So I just wrote a few examples there of some of the stories that I just really loved of just incredible hope. Go ahead, Nick, to the next slide, Beth. So,
Dr.
yeah,
Cassie, can I
yeah,
say
yeah,
something?
sure,
And
please.
it's interesting that you bring this book up. I was gonna bring this up because when you asked the question about, who brings you hope and gives you that, just that tenacity, I was gonna say the residents that I encounter at
Mhm,
St. Mary's is just remarkable. And two of those residents that were on that slide, one of them was actually one that I worked directly with, and the other one I knew of and worked with him as well. And it's amazing. There was a quote that they just did a survey, and um, they were talking about sometimes, people have the least amount of resources and the least amount, but there's just a hope and a thankfulness of
mhm.
everything that they get. And to me, that is what makes you have real gratitude, to be appreciative. We all want, different things and things like that, but just to be thankful for just the smallest things, it just gives me hope.
Thank you so much, Karen. And you're, that was something that really stood out to me in that book as well. I mean, the first lady on that list was a sharecropper. I mean, that was her background.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just incredible story of I mean, how she took care of all of her grandkids. I mean, just incredible story. So, like I said, we have holy moments in our lives every single day. And it's the holy moments that give us, that empower us to give hope to others. And there's really no better gift in that we could give to anybody than a holy moment. Next slide, please,
Cassie,
Beth.
Cassie,
Mhm.
I have extra copies of that book. If anyone wants a copy, I'll make sure that they get one. Just put it in the chat and I'll know that who to send it to and where to send it to. Tim Beats was so gracious in providing those books to us at our Christmas celebration luncheon last December. So I still have a few copies left over if someone would like to have a copy.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jeannie. And we talked about the world being a mess. We don't need to drag through the mud and talk about how messy the world is right now. But we just know that it is. And we know how we got here. We got here, it started way back on day one with Adam and Eve. And unfortunately, there's just a lot of unholy moments. It's those unholy moments that is making the world a mess. But the important message from this evening is we have power. The solution is holy moments, and we see those around us. We are in the middle of them. We are the makers of them as well, and the creators of them. So if you can go to the next slide, Beth, I think that's my last one. So it's really the collaboration between God and humanity, and that's us.
Mhm.
We are the solution, and we have the power in our lives to create holy moments and to amplify holy moments of others. So I hope this was a meaningful experience for you this evening. I know it certainly was for me, and all of the reading and study that brought us to this evening. But I appreciate you all being here this evening. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you to Beth for being our gracious host this evening too.